memories, the pictures will never go away.
When you think about a cathedral, for me, it's like this historic building.
Today, I consider myself
History.
The history.
the luckiest man on the face of the earth.
You realize when you walk down that tunnel the history that this stadium's seen.
Yogi Berra runs out, leaps on Larson.
The cathedral draws people of like faith. Here the religion is baseball.
The spirit of what you get in that park. Yankee Stadium was sacred. Yankee Stadium was sacred. Yankee Stadium was
It does something to you. There's something about this stadium.
There's an aura about Yankee Stadium.
When you first see it, you're in awe.
Tradition.
Tradition.
It's almost like, you know, the history of the game has passed through there.
The greatness of the players and the teams that call that home.
What a colossal blow!
So many images pop into your head.
Dimitri scores! The Colts are the world champions! Fastball hit deep to right. It's way back there! Oh!
When I think back, every time I take the field, all the great moments in Yankee Stadium.
The most unbelievable feat in World Series history.
Great players have played there.
Babe Ruth,
The Lou Gehrig
to DiMaggio and Mantle,
Yogi Berra,
Roger Maris.
Nelson Howard,
Jackson,
Whitey Ford,
Munson.
Just thank God, you know, the Lord was on our side.
There's a feeling somehow that the stadium produces winners.
Chris Chambliss has won the American League pennant for the New York Yankees.
Winning.
See ya! See ya! See ya! A home run by Derek Jeter!
championships.
Championship.
World champions, team of the decade, most successful franchise of the century.
It only happens in October.
The Bambino!
Magical.
Brocious hits one to left.
Once again, deja vu!
There's such a mystique about Yankee Stadium.
Another miracle in the Bronx!
It just seems like the ghosts come out of every corner.
Derek told me the ghosts will show up eventually, and they did.
There's a fly ball deep to left! It's on its way! There it goes! And the Yankees are going to the World Series!
I don't think there's any more storied stadium than Yankee Stadium.
It is a shrine.
President walking out to the mound to thunderous applause.
It's taken on such a mythical, almost a religious connotation. It does something to you. It won't let you forget what has happened here. I think that makes it the mecca of baseball.
What's the mecca of baseball?
Yankee Stadium truly is a thing of beauty.
Yankee Stadium transcends baseball. Yankee Stadium is the mecca of all stadiums.
Yes, it's legends. Yes, the events, but more so the structure. You just feel like you're in a cathedral.
Major League Baseball Productions presents Yankee Stadium, baseball's cathedral. Jacob.
When I walked into this stadium 18 years ago, I felt much the same way I do right now. I don't have words to describe how I felt then or how I feel now. I don't have words to describe how I felt then or how I feel now.
There is nothing more indelible than a memory of your first time.
First time I walked in the Yankee Stadium, it seemed like it was larger than life. I was probably 6, 7 years old, and it seemed like the grass was greener in Yankee Stadium. Everything was huge. The players, we were probably in the upper deck. The players looked so small, but it's an experience that you'll never forget.
The first time that I visited Yankee Stadium, I was maybe in the 8th grade, and my dad brought me over to some games during the regular season, and I remember at one time I was sitting in the bleachers, and Lou Gehrig hit a line drive home run that landed about 10 feet from where I was sitting. But I can remember it was just kind of a majestic place, and it was just a very, very awe-inspiring sight.
Yeah, just kind of the shape of the stadium for me. When I just remember walking in the first time as a minor league player getting called up, walking down the tunnel, coming out and seeing that horseshoe in left field.
The first time I saw Yankee Stadium was 1954. We're coming up the East Side Highway, and now I see Yankee Stadium, and we get closer and closer, and the lump in my throat gets swelled up a little bit more, and pretty soon a tear trickles down my face. And I tried to hide the fact that I had the tear going down, but I got pretty choked up looking at the stadium.
First time I walked on Yankee Stadium, it was incredible. The sellout against the Orioles, and people, when you walk to the bullpen, were chanting my name. It's a feeling that I'll never, ever forget, and being accepted at Yankee Stadium and being part of something that's so magical is very, very special.
I remember walking down into the bowels of Yankee Stadium and down to the clubhouse, and everybody filed into the clubhouse, and I couldn't wait to go on the field, you know, and I asked a guard there, I said, how do you get to the dugout, you know, and he said, well, follow that rubber mat there, you know, and I followed that rubber mat, and then it goes down into the tunnel, and there was a light, you know, daylight showing down at the end of the tunnel, and I walked down there, and the closer I got, you know, I mean, just the anticipation was unbelievable, and I stepped out into the dugout, into this daylight, and now I'm standing in the dugout, and now I climbed the steps, and now I'm standing on the field, and I tell you, it was one of the most awesome experiences that I've ever had in the game.
Well, the first time that I saw Yankee Stadium, there were 60,000 people for an exhibition game there. And if you walked on the field and you stood at second base and you looked up, you never saw a ballpark like that. It was absolutely mesmerizing. It was just incredible. And I was lucky to play on those teams.
My first experience of going to Yankee Stadium with my dad was 1957. I'm 9 years old, and we're walking through the streets of the Bronx. It was pretty exciting. And we come into this big building, Yankee Stadium, and we walk through a tunnel, and you see a glimpse, and it's as if my world was changing from black and white to CinemaScope Technicolor. And it just unfolded. It explodes. It overwhelms your senses. First is the color. It's striking. It's the green grass. It's the white uniforms. And to see these guys that I had only seen either on baseball cards or in television, now it wasn't a black and white newspaper. They were alive. They were moving. It was color.
1956, Don Larson's perfect game. I was sitting in the third deck between third base and left field. I remember Mickey Mantle running toward me. It seemed like he ran toward me to catch Gil Hodges' line drive in left center field. And that certainly was a lasting memory, and still is an enduring memory for me of Yankee Stadium.
I got called up in '95 in September, and I got there really, really early. I didn't want to miss it. It was like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and the team was not supposed to get there till about 4, so I was the only one there. I didn't go into the clubhouse. I went straight to the dugout. And as I walked to the dugout with my luggage, I couldn't stop crying. It was just a dream come true.
First time that got up to bat, you know, and going to play Yankee Stadium with Charlie Keller, Tommy Hendrick, Joe DiMaggio, Lindell, Billy Johnson, Phil Rizzuto. That was a pretty big honor for me to get in and look, I'm playing with all these guys that I watched play when I was a kid.
And my first game, you know, is something that I just never forget. 1996 opening day that we played against Kansas City. There's, for me, they come from the Dominican Republic, you know, a hot weather country, and come to New York, and it was really cold, you know. They started snowing in the 5th inning, and I remember in the 8th inning, I come to the plate with a bases loaded and 2 out. You know, we winning by 1 run, and I just called in timeout about 3 or 4 times because the snow started getting right in my eyes.
Mariano got a snowflake or 2 in his eyes, got time.
And the home plate umpire tell me, you know, say, you know, I don't want to give you no more, you know, timeout. You got to go there and hit. And I just get lucky, and that guy threw me a high fastball. I hit him base hit to right field and drove him to run. And that's a great experience that I have in Yankee Stadium.
I was playing with the A's, the Oakland A's, and I walked out to center field to look at the monuments. And I'll never forget that. I remember that it was so far out in center field and left center. It was 463 out by the flagpole.
Yankee Stadium center field is 461 feet. Left center, 457. Left field, 402. That's what made DiMaggio and Mantle so great. They could run like a deer, and they could catch balls that nobody else could catch that would go over the ballpark fences today. So if you played in Yankee Stadium, you hit the ball straight away, you're out.
It's just enormous. It's such an incredibly big place, and to know that, except for Josh Gibson, nobody ever hit a fair ball out of Yankee Stadium, and you can see why, even though Mantle came pretty close.
There are many features of Yankee Stadium that fans connect with, but one stands high above the rest.
I think the thing that makes Yankee Stadium really is that facade. I mean, when you think of Yankee Stadium, you think of it's really called the frieze.
I always loved the facade, the sort of scalloping around the top.
The thing that I remember during the World Series, when the National League team would come out on the field and they'd all stand up on that top step and they wouldn't say anything, you could just see them looking around that field, and I think the vastness of it just kind of really sort of got to them a little bit.
In 2008, Yankee Stadium celebrated its final opening day. But this was not where the Yankees first played their home games. The team made its New York debut in 1903, known then as the Highlanders, as part of the fledgling American League.
Well, the Yankees began their tenure in New York at Hilltop Park, a small, rickety wooden grandstand located in Upper Manhattan.
And that's where they played for those 10 years from 1903 to 1912, up where the New York Presbyterian Hospital is today.
The Highlanders changed their name to the Yankees in 1913. That same year, they left Hilltop Park and became guests at the Polo Grounds, home of the New York Giants and John McGraw. But 7 years later, they became unwelcome guests after acquiring a man who commandeered the spotlight.
Ruth in 1920, he hit New York like a thunderbolt.
George Herman Ruth. The Yankees have just purchased him from the Boston Red Sox, and he's slugging his way to baseball immortality.
And attendance was out of this world. It was the first time they actually beat the Giants in attendance. It was the first time anybody had gone over 1 million in attendance.
And as a result of that, created a very untenable situation for the Giant management to endure. So, the Giant management asked the Yankees to leave.
They eventually settled on this parcel of land in the Bronx. They hired the Osborne Engineering Company in Cleveland to design the ballpark.
At that time, we were probably one of the preeminent firms in concrete and steel. They came to us and said, come in and help us build something fantastic for the New York Yankees.
Construction began at 161st Street and River Avenue in the Bronx in May of 1922, and it was clear that this would be no ordinary ballpark.
The owners really wanted something unique, something large, something very grand, and we designed that.
It was an amazing feat of construction. It was also an amazing feat of engineering and design.
You first come in there, you grade the land, get to a rough configuration. Come in, you dig your holes for your foundations, support your columns. You start doing the formwork for that. Get the column bases configured. Start doing the outfield. And then you start doing the structural steel. You can almost see it, the skeleton taking shape.
You talk about the vast quantities of materials that were used in the construction of the stadium, things like 800 tons of rebar and 20,000 yards of concrete. To the average fan, that may not mean a whole lot, but to an engineer or to a construction person, that's really impressive. To do that in 284 days with those sorts of materials is really an outstanding feat.
Indeed, the first Yankee Stadium miracle is that it was built in less than a year. What's more, the Yankees' new home, one of the first to be called the stadium, had emerged as an architectural and engineering marvel.
We came up with the innovation of the three-tiered seating decks. Not only allowed us to add more seats, but keep them all fairly close to the field. Maybe not quite up with the building of the pyramids, but certainly a very good engineering feat.
But like any other cathedral of its time, the stadium needed something to top it off, to make it stand out. So a stylish feature was added, one that would become the stadium's trademark.
The owners of the New York Yankees at the time decided that they wanted to give it an air of dignity. So the Osborne Engineering Company had erected what was known originally as a frieze. Somewhere along the way took on the term of facade, and most people know it today as the facade.
And that facade really kind of reflected the architectural character and design influences of the time, which is some of the Greek revival, the Greek architecture and Roman architecture with the arches.
You'll see. With the masterpiece complete, it was time to play ball. And what a regal opener it was.
Opening day, April 18, 1923, Yankees opened shop.
With John Philip Sousa's marching bands, Governor Al Smith throwing out the first ball.
It was, as we say today, New York's hottest ticket.
Folks, it's a great day for a ball game. But I want to tell you something. When I paid for this box to the scalpers, I could have probably bought the whole ballpark.
It was unbelievable. There were supposedly 74,000 people there on opening day and another 15,000 that were turned away.
The fortunate fans that did get in got to see the Yankees beat the Red Sox. And in the process, the stadium received a nickname that would last forever.
Babe Ruth capped it off in fine fashion with a 3-run homer.
New York's Yankee Stadium, the house that Babe Ruth built.
Till this day, if you refer to it as the house that Ruth built, everybody will know what you're talking about.
Fact is, it wasn't so much built by Ruth as it was for Ruth, especially with its short right field porch.
The saying that Yankee Stadium was the house that Ruth built, and that's true to a certain extent, but more so because it was built for Ruth. It was designed for his capabilities.
Behind Ruth, the Yankees had a great year in 1923 and capped off their first season at the stadium with a championship. This lineup, which became known as Murderers Row, would win 2 more titles in the 20s, and Yankee Stadium, beyond its majestic grandeur, was also becoming synonymous with success.
You're sitting in a place that is more than a ballpark.
I like to think of it as the home of champions. There were so many successful, preeminent teams.
Indeed, New York won an incredible 20 World Series titles in Yankee Stadium's first 50 years. But it soon began to show its age, and so in the mid-70s, Yankees owner George Steinbrenner convinced the city to give the stadium a much-needed facelift.
The stadium had been in existence since 1923, and there were aspects of the stadium that no longer worked.
We used to have bat days in the early 70s, and the young fans would pound their bats on the concrete to sort of stimulate a Yankee rally. And some chunks of concrete would fall as a result of that, and that was the early warning sign to us that the stadium needed repair.
Mr. Steinbrenner came in and immediately pushed with Mayor Lindsay for the renovation of the stadium. It had to get done.
The Yankees at that time with Steinbrenner were able to successfully leverage the city of New York to help support this major renovation.
His presence and his lobbying had a major effect on what was done.
The stadium was gutted during the 2-year renovation, and while the original foundation remained intact, the house that Ruth built became almost unrecognizable.
Demolition began the very day after the baseball season ended, and before the end of the day, wrecking balls had pulled up and heavy demolition equipment was there, and the whole process began quickly.
Well, part of the renovation of Yankee Stadium entailed many, many improvements. The field was dropped 5 feet for sightline improvements. The monuments were moved to Monument Park.
They took out the columns which were supporting the mezzanine and upper levels, and they took down that facade.
And the facade was an interesting thing. When it came down, the salvage outfits thought that they were going to take away this precious metal. They thought it was copper. So after they took down the first section, and they looked at it and said, "This isn't copper. This is turned metal."
It's virtually worthless. Boy, were they disappointed.
Once again, the Yankees became guests, this time at Shea Stadium in Queens, where they played in 1974 and 75. Back in the Bronx, a working chimney just outside Gate 4 would emerge as an iconic feature of the stadium, almost as an afterthought.
You know what would really be interesting, would be neat, if we could get it painted with the logos, like a bat. So I called up the people at Louisville Slugger and pitched this whole idea to them. And the result of it all was they painted the bat up. It looked like a Louisville Slugger with the markings, and it was a Babe Ruth autograph model standing in front of Yankee Stadium.
And so, in April of 1976, the newly renovated Yankee Stadium opened for business, and the past was on hand to celebrate the present.
We had all these dignitaries there, including Joe Louis, great New York Giants players who had played there.
It's a big honor for all of us, I think, that they invited so many of us back who had played there, had been involved in Yankee Stadium. It was a special moment for me.
I was more caught up in the ceremonies and the needs in the press box than I was in the history that was going on. Whereas Babe Ruth hit the first home run in the original Yankee Stadium, Minnesota's Dan Ford hit the first home run in the new one.
Still, it was almost as if Yankee Stadium had been built for the first time, and the New York fans immediately embraced it.
Terrific place. Color, seating, view.
When we came back home in 1976, this magnificent refurbished facility, it was a great feeling.
Great, great. Now all we need is a winning team.
I think the people adjusted to it well because, for one thing, the Yankees got back into the World Series that year, 1976.
And while they didn't win it all that year, the new Yankee Stadium would play host to 6 more championship teams through 2007.
From 76 on, this franchise under George Steinbrenner has been all about, putting the best team on the field, and many occasions that's translated into a world championship.
It's Yankee Stadium, it's the Cathedral of baseball, and the memories and its position really never changed.
The aura of Yankee Stadium has always been intrinsically linked to the legends that have played there.
Hello there, everybody, and welcome to another extra special day at this landmark ballpark, Yankee Stadium.
Men like Yogi Berra, Phil Rizzuto, and Don Mattingly, they all have graced the stadium with their presence, and it is here that they are still rightfully honored.
Through the years, on this hallowed ground, there's been a parade of great days for stars,
Mickey Mantle and Roger Maris,
and superstars,
Jolting Joe DiMaggio.
Since 1932, the Yankees have honored their greatest of greats.
And no day at the stadium proved more magnificent than the one when the Yankees honored their beloved icon of the 50s and 60s.
The thing that I got the biggest kick out of, in 1969, the Yankees had Mickey Mantle Day at Yankee Stadium.
Mickey Mantle Day was as perfectly staged an event as I ever remember being at. The people who were there representing his whole career.
Welcome, Gil McDougald, the Scooter Phil Rizzuto, and Whitey Ford.
They each stood behind pennants from the different years that Mickey was on a pennant-winning team.
The joy you could feel in the stadium that day was unparalleled, as a generation of fans thanked their hero.
One of the all-time Yankee greats, the magnificent Yankee, the great number 7, Mickey Mantle.
The length of the ovation for Mickey, the love that came from those fans.
For 9 minutes, this throng at Yankee Stadium stood until they had to be asked to be quiet. Number 7 will never be worn again at Yankee Stadium.
Mickey's speech was wonderful.
Now,
to think that the Yankees are retiring my number 7 with numbers 3, 4, and 5 tops off everything that I could ever wish for.
Everything about that day was perfect, and I think every day for an immortal ball player retiring ever since has to be compared to that one.
I've often wondered how a man who knew he was going to die could stand here and say that he was the luckiest man in the world. But now I think I know how Lou Gehrig felt.
Larapin Lou was once the symbol of enduring strength for New York. But when his career was cut short by an incurable disease, Yankee Stadium provided the venue for his poignant farewell.
The most iconic, emotional moment at Yankee Stadium was the Lou Gehrig day, when the players lined up on either side of home plate and Lou made that speech. He was a genuinely admired and loved player and man.
You will live long in baseball, and for generations to come, while boys in America play baseball, they will point to your record with pride and satisfaction.
It was extraordinary. You had a full house of about 62,000 fans. As Lou approached home plate, the crowd started to implore Lou to speak.
Lou was called upon without notes to make what has since become regarded, I guess without any sarcasm, as baseball's Gettysburg Address.
For the past 2 weeks, you've been reading about a bad brag.
And to see this magnificent player choking up as he spoke to this gigantic stadium is for me, at least in my memory, the most prominent event.
When you look around, wouldn't you consider it privilege to associate yourself with such a fine-looking man as is standing in uniform in this ballpark today?
He never did say very much about himself. He didn't feel sorry about himself, and it certainly was a very, very sad day for all of us.
Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth. That I might have been given a bad break, but I've got an awful lot to live for. Thank you.
Congratulations to the New York Yankees on their 20
years after Gehrig passed away. Babe Ruth, stricken with throat cancer, returned to his house to thank his countless fans.
Cancer had really ravaged him. He looked like he weighed about 135 or 140 pounds.
On the very field that Ruth used to carry a 44-ounce bat, he could now barely carry himself.
Looking down at Daddy, looking so frail, I was on the verge of tears.
His vocal cords and larynx were involved with the malignancy, and he spoke with almost a hoarse whisper.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. You know how bad my voice sounds. Well, it feels just as bad.
And it was a very dramatic scene and a very sad scene to see him, because you knew that his days on earth were limited.
There's been so many lovely things said about me, and I'm glad that I've had the opportunity to thank everybody. Thank you.
The following year, Ruth returned one final time.
You could just tell that the end was close, and it was a great effort for him to be there. You just knew that this was going to be the last time that people saw and heard Babe Ruth. It was a sad day for everybody in baseball.
Less than 2 months later, the Babe was gone, and more than 100,000 fans came to baseball's Cathedral to pay their respects.
All you could see were people. I remember thinking, all these people have saying goodbye.
The Yankee Clipper, Joe DiMaggio, called Yankee Stadium his home for 13 seasons, and his farewell was pure joy.
Said a couple of words, and that was it, and I thanked him, It was really, and I still think as one of the nicest days of my life.
Still, Joe remained a frequent honored guest at the stadium, and in his final visit in 1998, he threw a strike. Joltin' Joe passed away in March of '99, and later that year, he was honored with a monument in the park and remembered in song.
Where have you gone, Joe DiMaggio? A nation turns its lonely eyes to you. Ooh, what's that you say, Mrs. Robinson? Joltin' Joe has left and gone away.
But no one was prepared for the outpouring of love and emotion at the stadium when a revered Yankee captain died tragically and suddenly.
Thurman Munson wore the pinstripes with number 15. But in living, loving, and legend, history will record my friend is number 1.
The emotion of the day had been so much for them. It's incredible that they were able to play before the game. When the Yankees took the field, they left the catcher's box empty. It was just an eerie kind of a thing.
Having returned from the funeral in Cleveland that morning, the Yankees tried their best to play. After delivering the eulogy just hours prior, Mercer honored his dear friend the best way he knew how.
Obviously, Mercer was charged up by the emotion of the day because he had been so close to Thurman.
I think you could say it's the only time that all the fans left the ballpark in tears after a Yankee victory.
"86 years of baseball at Yankee Stadium have provided countless chilling moments in regular season play, moments rendered by some of the very best to play the game. None greater than the man who personifies the pinstripes.
The greatest idol in American sports, the Bambino, Babe Ruth.
Babe's impact on the game of baseball is unmatched. Ruth made Yankee Stadium his personal playground by hitting more home runs than entire teams.
The greatest home run hitter of all time.
And in 1927, he reached a number that became a baseball benchmark for more than 30 years.
Previously, he had set the record of 59 home runs. People wondered if he could ever muscle up again to hit 60. At the end of the season, last game of the year, he hits number 60. When Babe did that, it was so far beyond what other players were capable of.
What a season it's been for the
Right behind Ruth was the Iron Horse, Lou Gehrig. He too achieved the magical number, and his incredible durability and work ethic was so honored at the stadium.
Sir, I want to congratulate you on your wonderful career in playing 2,000 games without missing a game. And I hope I'm around here when you play your next 2,000.
Still another legendary teammate of Lou's also had an amazing streak, one that began in the house that Ruth built.
As I recall it, it was a fellow by the name of Edgar Smith of the White Sox. I got a base hit. Didn't mean very much, but that started me off in my streak.
Safe hits in 56 consecutive games, an all-time record.
With each new generation, more pinstripe heroes emerged. Some of them were destined to break former Yankee records and make history at the stadium.
This lethal weapon belonging to Roger Maris has helped vault the ex-Kansas City outfielder into the limelight as the outstanding slugger of the young season.
It was the summer of '61, and Roger Maris was hitting home runs at a phenomenal pace.
There it is. It's going, it's gone.
In the final game of the regular season, Maris came to the plate at Yankee Stadium with a chance to break the game's most cherished record.
Fourth inning came, and I watched everything, every move that Tracy Stow had made on the mound, and I watched Roger. I didn't take my eye off of it.
Here comes Roger Maris. Just standing up, waiting to see if Maris is going to hit number 61.
Well, anyway, Roger hit the ball.
Fastball hit in the right.
As soon as he hit the ball, I jumped on my seat. For some reason, I knew it was going to be over my head. I reached as high as I can reach. The ball hit me right in the palm of the hand, and that's pretty much what happened.
When I came in, of course, the people kept clapping and clapping. The guys trying to push me out of the dugout, and I was embarrassed to go out there.
Another standing ovation for Roger Maris.
Roger gained baseball immortality that day. 6 years later, his good friend would join him. Mickey Mantle was a matinee idol for the New York Yankees. And at Yankee Stadium, as his career came to a close, he approached a home run milestone.
At that point, there were just a handful of guys that had achieved 500 home runs. I mean, it was a monumental career number.
When I come out of the dugout, the people all stood up and they applauded for like 10 minutes. All I was wanting to do is just not strike out.
Here's the payoff pitch. This is it! There it goes! It's out of here!
Luckily, I hit a home run. That was a big thrill for me.
I was just so happy for Mickey because he was hurting in those days. His knees were like two toothaches at all times. You could just see the pain out there.
The Mix historic blast rattled the rafters. 40 years later, still another Yankee reached the same mark and did so in record time.
The fans want today to be the day that he reaches the 500 home run club.
I was nervous because you had 55,000 people hoping and cheering that I hit the home run.
The Yankee fans on their feet, encouraging A-Rod to reach the 500 club. Now he stands at 499 as he steps in against Kyle Davies.
The right-hander Davies is set. The pitch swung on and high in the air down the left field line.
This is fair. It could be. It could be.
He's done it! Alex Rodriguez has made Major League Baseball history, the youngest player ever to hit 500 home runs.
When I hit that ball, I just was hoping that it stayed fair and assured that it stayed straight as an arrow. I just couldn't believe the ball went out. I was so happy.
What was the most surprising?
The thing you remember most about Whitey Ford is he won every game, it seemed, that the Yankees had to win. And he was the pitcher on the mound in every game that they had to win.
Ford pitched 33 2/3 scoreless innings in World Series play. He still holds the Major League record with 10 Fall Classic victories. 7 of them came at Yankee Stadium, more than any other player.
The ball game is over, and the Yankees win 2-0. Ford has his 3rd straight World Series shutout.
But Whitey is certainly not the only Yankee pitcher who's performed amazing feats on these hollow grounds. Fact is, there have been 11 no-hitters thrown at Yankee Stadium in its first 85 years, and 8 of them were thrown by men in pinstripes. It is no surprise that many of these gems had a special aura about them. Like on the 4th of July, 1983, George Steinbrenner's birthday, and the boss would receive a special gift from Dave Righetti on a hot, steamy day in the Bronx.
It's about 94 degrees here at game time.
Despite the fact that Righetti was facing the Yankees' most hated rival,
Strike 3!
he battled through the intense heat and high pitch count and found himself 1 out away from the Yankees' first no-hitter in 27 years.
40,000 plus people standing and roaring, and Righetti trying to get Bob. And he gets it! A no-hitter! A no-hitter for Dave Righetti!
July 4th was a special day, Steinbrenner's birthday, Lou Gehrig Day at Yankee Stadium. It was a great day. It fits in with the Yankee lore.
The mere fact that Jim Abbott had made it to the major leagues with just one hand was one of the most inspiring stories the sports world would ever know. But then came the final out on September 4th, 1993.
I remember seeing that ground ball go to Andy Velarde, and he threw it across the diamond, and Donnie Mattingly catching it.
He did it! He did it! No-hitter for Jim Abbott!
It's the excitement, seeing the fans jump up and down.
What an emotional moment for Jim Abbott.
And then going back out for a curtain call, it's a great honor.
Jim Abbott had obviously made the most of his talent. Dwight Gooden had the talent, but after a time, he wasted it away. But Doc got a second chance with the Yankees, and thanks to a surprise start, he got a measure of salvation at the stadium.
The only reason he was in the starting rotation is because David Cohn had an aneurysm and couldn't pitch.
What's more, Gooden wasn't in the best frame of mind, as his father was scheduled to undergo double heart bypass surgery the following day.
Doc was struggling before the game because his dad was sick and didn't know exactly, if he was going to be able to pitch that game free of worrying.
I didn't know that day if I really wanted to take the mound. But then at the same time, I was telling myself, what better place would my father want me to be on that day?
And with that in mind, Gooden went to work.
It wasn't like he had great stuff that night. He fought and willed all the way through. It was personal.
And you can hear the crowd get behind Dwight Gooden. Got him again.
Once in a while, my mind would drift off a little bit, wondering what it's going to be like for him the next day, and I just got refocused somehow when I took the mound.
And that is the final out of the 7th inning. The Seattle Mariners got no runs and no hits.
I cried for the man. I cried for the fact that in between innings, he needed to go inside and let out his emotion.
And on the strength of that emotion, Gooden found himself 1 out away from his second win as a Yankee, and incredibly, a no-hitter.
You just see Doc sweating out there, and we got 2 out in the 9th inning.
Curveball popped up.
See Derek Jeter waving his arms.
Under it. Good with his hands in the air. He's done it. Dwight Gooden has just pitched a no-hitter. And for a man who has had his problems, what a night this must be.
The memory I have is Doc Gooden with that fierce look on his face of accomplishment.
If you're going to pitch a no-hitter, this is not a bad place to pitch it. Yankee Stadium in New York.
What if you...
Of the 8 Yankee no-hitters pitched at the stadium, 3 of them have been perfect games. And all 3 have had almost mystical connections. It began with Don Larsen's perfect game in the World Series.
Yogi Berra runs out there. He leaps on Larsen.
Larsen was a graduate of Point Loma High School in San Diego, where he also threw a perfect game, as did another Yankee pitcher years later, David Wells.
We've got something in common. We went to the same high school. We both did perfect games in high school, so, there's always going to be that bond.
But Wells had no idea how strong that bond was about to become when he took the mound at Yankee Stadium on May 17, 1998.
Strikeout number 10 for David Wells. 21 in a row have been retired.
David was perfect through 7 innings, and his fellow teammates began to adhere to an age-old tradition.
I'd walk to the dugout and it's like parting of the sea, man. It was like nobody was there to talk to you.
As the day wore on, I think he knew exactly what was going on, and he actually came up to me first and talked about how nervous he was, and so nobody would talk to him. So I told him, you really got some guts here. If you just one time, just throw a knuckleball, then that'll really be something. And he got a chuckle out of it.
And I look in the dugout, he's got his hat down, jersey, and he's playing peekaboo, and I'm like, what's this guy doing? But it was great because it kind of broke the moment, because you don't want to get all tense, and my good old buddy Coney was right there to break it up.
But while Cone did his best to keep Wells loose, the overall atmosphere in the stadium was impossible to ignore.
Fans on their feet at the stadium as David Wells prepares to start the ninth inning.
That last inning, the fans are screaming. I was getting nervous because of the fans. They were making me nervous.
David Wells is down to one more out for the 15th perfect game in Major League history.
Swung on. He's going to get it. Popped up to right field. O'Neill near the line. He makes the catch. David Wells. David Wells has pitched a perfect game. 27 up. 27 down. Baseball immortality for David Wells.
Coney's sitting there with me, and he goes, "Hey, man, look at the board. You don't know if you'll ever see that again. Take a look at the board." And I look up, and on the big screen it says, "Dave Wells just pitched a perfect game." And, you know, I just got chills down my spine. It always seems that the good things happen in Yankee Stadium.
But this eerie confluence had yet to run its course, and this time Cone was the central figure. It was July 18th, 1999, Yogi Berra Day at the stadium, a celebration for the man who caught Larson's perfect game.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Yogi Berra.
There's something about Yogi Berra. You know, we all were looking forward to that day. I mean, we all knew on the schedule when it was coming.
Well, I want to thank you all, making me feel right at home. God bless you. Thank you.
I was out in the bullpen mound warming up before the game, and Yogi was riding around in a convertible waving at the people. The look on his face and how proud he was, how happy he was.
And if that wasn't enough, Larson himself was on hand to throw out the first pitch. Looking back on it later, it was enough to give you chills.
It's really pretty amazing that Don Larson threw out the first pitch to Yogi Berra that day. I never could imagine that something so special could happen, but that's the way Yankee Stadium is.
Larson will throw out the first pitch of this game in commemoration of 1956.
And once the game began, Cohen began to deal.
9 up, 9 down, and Cone already has 5 strikeouts.
Then came the rain in the bottom of the third, and the game was delayed for more than a half an hour. There were even thoughts that Cohen might not return, but he did.
Strike 3.
I remember getting through 5 and going, man, my pitch count's really low here. We've got some runs on the board. And I had a real good slider going that day, and they were swinging at it.
Struck him out swinging. Slider away.
Everyone began to connect the perfect game dots, and it was almost too much.
He pitched a perfect game on Yogi Berra Day. Come on.
With Don Larson in the park.
I mean, my gosh.
To enjoy vicariously the thrill that the players were enjoying on the field, particularly David, who was such a warrior.
You realize how knowledgeable the New York baseball fan is, and 2-strike chants get a little louder, and outs become a little more pronounced from the stands, and you can almost sense it. You can feel the emotion rising in the stand.
Oh, get ready. We go to the 9th inning. David Cone 3 outs away from a perfect game.
And in the 9th inning, on the brink of disaster, Cohen received some divine intervention.
Swung on and line to left. Coming in is Leday.
He got that deer in the headlights look in his eyes, and uh-oh.
He makes the catch. He came in, caught it, juggled it, and held on.
Wow. I can't believe, this just happened, and now I've got 2 outs in the 9th.
David Cone is 1 out away from a perfect game.
Only at Yankee Stadium could something this magical, this unbelievable take place.
He popped him up. He's going to get it.
I looked up to try to find the ball, almost like the sun was setting over into that area, and I got kind of blinded by it, so I immediately pointed up as if to show Scotty Brocious where the ball was.
Brocious makes the catch. Ball game over. A perfect game.
Girardi kind of gave me a bear hug and pulled me down on top of him, and I didn't think we were ever going to get up. I was so exhausted, so elated. After the game, I saw that I had thrown 88 pitches, and then I had this vivid memory of a big number 8 painted into the grass in honor of Yogi Berra, whose number was 8. And just a cold chill went down my spine. That was the most surreal part of the whole day. It really makes you wonder about the mystique of Yankee Stadium.
Beyond the right field wall of Yankee Stadium, just beneath the subway, lives a different breed of Yankee fan with a very special nickname.
The Bleacher Creature name started probably back in like 95 and 96 when Phil Bondi from the Daily News started writing routine articles about kind of the nonsense that happened in the bleachers night after night.
It's a pretty cool thing, you know. The Bleacher Creatures are people that you fear as a visiting player, you know, but you love as a home player.
It's the Bleacher Creatures who are responsible for the daily roll call.
The first pitch is thrown, we start a roll call.
They just took it upon themselves to keep yelling until they were acknowledged.
I had no idea about the roll call. Derek would look at me and go, "Are you gonna wave?"
If you get too involved in the game and don't acknowledge them, you might be on their bad side for the night.
It's tradition. My dad brought me up as a Yankee fan. My son's a Yankee fan. It spans through generations.
They do such a great job of keeping the history alive that when you walk in, you kind of feel that. You feel like you're a part of something bigger than just that day's game.
As soon as you get in that game and you hear the fans, you feel those goosebumps and those butterflies, and that adrenaline picks up. Whew, it's a special place.
In the first postseason of his storied career, the crowd fueled a fan favorite to hit his first ever playoff home run.
This one by Mattingly. Oh, hang on to the roof. Goodbye, home run. Don Mattingly.
And while the fans might have helped will Donnie's moment, they took matters into their own hands in the '96 ALCS.
In right field, Tarasco going back to the track, to the wall. And what happens here? He contends that a fan reaches up and touches it.
It was a play that it was a gift from God, so to speak.
Sometimes the moments are spontaneous, like the night the fans serenaded Paul O'Neill. In what they knew would be his final game at the stadium.
These fans are chanting Paul O'Neill's name because he has hinted that this will be his final year.
That's the way the fans in New York are. They love to cheer for you. They love to, to welcome you or say bye. And I think that we're saying, Paul O'Neill, we're going to miss you a lot.
Even to this day, I mean, it's pretty overwhelming. When you are sent off in a fashion like that, it makes you feel good that, things were well here in New York when you played here.
This kind of tribute is reserved for those special Yankees who always give their fans their best.
You're expected to perform every single night, and Joe DiMaggio said it best when he said he plays hard every night because you never know when that one person comes to the first game to see you play, and that's the only impression he's going to have of you.
Yankees win, baby! Yankees win!
One of the grandest days of all at Yankee Stadium is Old Timers Day. Players from the past get to reconnect with their former teammates and the stadium in which they once played. And the fans get to witness these living legends firsthand. Perhaps the most memorable one was when Billy Martin made a surprise appearance in 1978.
They're reading the announcement. We want to welcome back to be the Yankees manager in 1980 and hopefully for many years to come, Billy Martin? No one could believe it. It was a well-kept secret.
The Yankees are so defined by their generations, and it's never more apparent than when it's on display for the Old Timers Day.
Number 7, Mickey Mantle.
The great names they reverberated throughout the stadium and reverberate throughout the history of the franchise.
The fans come out, they make you feel like, what you did when you were here was worth their time. It is over and you're not going to play anymore. So you go out for Old Timers Day and you just have fun running around that field one more time.
It's like being a little kid in a candy store. It reminds me of the days when I was a little boy and I used to go to the ballpark and yell players' names, you know, over the fence. It just takes you back to being a child again, and you look at these guys and say, you know, these were my heroes.
You envision the success that they had on the field and the history and the monuments. I mean, it all adds up to a wonderful, wonderful baseball experience.
In the outer reaches of Yankee Stadium lies a sacred site, a place where past heroes are immortalized, and everyone can pay tribute.
Monument Park really is the kind of thing that tugs at all ball players' hearts. Everybody's kind of got a dream of, boy, if I really stay in this game and do something special, that I can be honored in that particular way. It's so special, so unique.
All the people that have played for this organization, only a handful of people have that honor to have a monument made for them.
It's the people that you see in the history books, and all of a sudden you realize when you see them out there on a plaque in Yankee Stadium that they walk the field. Every once in a while you'll walk out there and just kind of remind yourself what this place is all about.
These days, all the Yankee legends are housed in Monument Park, but that wasn't always the case, and that created some unique ground rules in the outfield.
In 1932, the monument to Miller Huggins was erected, placed in dead center field. That was the first monument, and it stayed out there for about 9 years until the monument to Lou Gehrig was erected. And then the greatest of them all, Babe Ruth.
Placed directly in front of the flagpole in left center field, the monuments were in play, though they were 461 feet from home plate. There they would remain for more than 40 years.
The monuments were in fair territory, but so far out in deep center field that rarely did they ever come into play.
Several balls hit over my head towards those monuments over there, and I figured they went in one side, and I went through the monuments. I could cut it off, so I squeezed through those monuments a couple of times.
Unlike today, fans could only pay homage to their heroes once the game was over, and it was quite a sight.
In those days, you were allowed to walk across the outfield to get to an exit. You weren't allowed on the infield, but you could stroll across this vast expanse of the outfield. And of course, we stopped at the monuments, and I thought that all three of those men, Huggins, Gehrig, and Ruth, were buried there because they looked like gravestones.
During the renovation of Yankee Stadium in the 70s, the monuments were moved to their current location, and Ruth, Gehrig, and Huggins would soon have company.
This is called the Memorial Park section of Yankee Stadium. And when opening day rolls around, the familiar monuments and plaques, which used to be out in dead center, will be out here in left center off the playing field.
Monument Park eventually became the most exclusive part of not only Yankee Stadium, but any ballpark for that matter. There's really no other like it.
As in any cathedral, those who were in attendance at Yankee Stadium heeded a voice from above.
Good evening. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Yankee Stadium.
Bob Shepard has been known as the voice of Yankee Stadium and commonly referred to as the voice of God.
And for the Yankees.
To have one's voice become such a part of a ballpark, people come from far and near to hear the Bob Shepard voice.
At first base, number 25, Jason Giambi.
It just seems to be built into the ballpark itself.
He has that special sound and just part of the sounds of the stadium, and so Bob's been a special character or part of that fabric over the years.
Really neat for him to come down and you talk to him beforehand, and you just realize how long he's been there.
Come on, Dave, score.
It's very hard to imagine games without him there because he was the voice that you heard in the stadium.
My purpose as a public address announcer is to inform, to let the crowd know that the next batter is Derek Jeter, not Derek Jeter!
I think the greatest compliment to Bob Shepard is you hear so many people try to imitate him. Players try to imitate him because he sounds so wonderful, and we all love the way that he says our names.
Now batting.
Number 2,
Number 2, Derek Jeter.
Derek Jeter. There's nothing wrong with Derek Jeter. I mean, it's boom, boom. Clear, concise, correct. Derek Jeter.
Bob Shepard was a speech teacher, a speech professor, and a living example of the way proper speech should be spoken. When he's on the PA system, it is the voice of God.
Welcome to Yankee Stadium.
To have your name called by Bob Shepard at Yankee Stadium is probably one of the most special things that can happen.
Mickey Mantle said every time Bob Shepard introduced me at Yankee Stadium, I got shivers up my spine. And I said to him, so did I.
People come to Yankee Stadium because of its mystique. It's the monuments, it's the plaques, it's Bob Shepard, it's also Eddie Layton. It's a package. You come to Yankee Stadium for an experience, and without Eddie Layton, that package would never have been complete.
Everybody instantly, when I first did it, all joined in with rhythmic applause like that. And I looked over at that time when I did it for the first time, I looked over to the then owner of the Yankees. He gave me a thumbs up sign, and I got an immediate raise.
I remember Eddie's exuberance, even after so many years. He still loved what he was doing, and it showed right up to the very end.
A lot of people talk about, great players, guys like DiMaggio and Mays and Aaron and Clemente, and I can now say that I had one day that was like those guys.
All the history.
Good afternoon, baseball fans. This is Mel Allen.
The Yankees also had a legendary voice to spread the word outside of the Cathedral, and he will forever be known as the voice of the Yankees.
Mel was known for his booming voice.
There it is. If it stays fair, there it is, number 60.
Mel brought a measure of class to the broadcast, and his signature phrase still resonates today.
How about that? How about that play? How about that?
He also created some enduring nicknames, quite often on the spur of the moment.
Nicknames just sort of popped up. The Scooter, that was for the little kids. Tommy Henry coming to bat with men on base, and he was a good clutch hitter. I just said, here comes old reliable.
He really was the Yankees. He's part and parcel of the franchise.
Garrett tells Mel that his broadcasts are what are keeping Garrett going, and Mel thanks him and then just gets away from him as quickly as he can because he's just in tears.
His voice will always be remembered as the voice of the Yankees.
For a short time, Mel worked side by side with another classic baseball broadcaster, Red Barber.
Well, Red, the camera is back on us, and it was a tremendous series. Congratulations, Mel, on a great job, and congratulations to the New York Yankees.
And this talented tandem would soon be joined by still another Hall of Famer.
Red Barber, Mel Allen, and Phil Rizzuto.
Well, all I can say is we're very happy to have Phil. The only thing I'm worried about, this is one of Phil's Yankee caps. He always puts chewing gum on the top where the button is. Now, in the broadcasting booth, you better, if you want to stick it anywhere, be sure and put it on your own head, not on Red's or mine, will you?
Phil Rizzuto was the complete, honest broadcaster.
He would be so honest with you. Oh, I didn't think he could make that one. Oh, what a terrible throw. Home run in an elevator shaft. Little things like that, that were idioms used by no one else.
Holy cow, is it body English, bodying? Holy cow!
All of his sayings, talking about eating food in the booth, talking about getting out of there and beating the traffic.
Happy anniversary. I'll be home in a while. No, you won't. You'll be here for 9. I'll be home in a while, Gore.
He was just like the guy sitting out in the bleachers, only he had a microphone and he was up in the booth, and I think that's why he endeared himself to so many legions of fans throughout the whole New York area.
Acts just like you, oh, too. Relax. Just like you. No, if that's not a scooter walk, I don't know what it is. Oh, yeah. Sit down, you Huckleberry.
He would include everybody. He would mention the cameraman, Dulio Constable.
Not you, Dulio. I can't understand you anyway.
He would mention the birthdays.
I
high fly, and while it's in the air, happy birthday to Daphne Lapizan. She turned 18 today from George Washington University.
He would say things that would be almost cutting edge, that would crack Bill White up.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to New York Yankee baseball. I'm Bill White. Wait a minute. Oh, and I swear to God, I didn't.
Phil made it appear that it was just pure fun to be on the air.
Phil Rizzuto, along with Tom Seaver and Bobby Mercer, and we are back together for the first... I know what you got. What? Oh, we are live.
He came from an era of honesty, and he became a living legend. And every time I go to Yankee Stadium, I think about him.
Rizzuto has since passed away, but everyone can pay their respects to him and all the Yankee greats in one place.
You walk out to Monument Park and you see all the monuments and the retired numbers, and you think about, well, the Yankees have been such a big part of history.
Monument Park for me was the very first place that I went to as a visiting player the first time I came to Yankee Stadium. As I said, I wanted to see what that was all about.
I mean, just to be in the league for 20 years is amazing, let alone being to an all-star game 20 times.
You've seen it on TV, you've seen it on the highlights. To actually go out there and walk around and read the inscriptions is very special.
I think the best thing is the great teammate. I mean, right there. I mean, that just shows you what kind of player he was.
Being in a place where you can touch something that you've read about. You've seen the pictures of the monuments in books, you've read about the players. Just go there and stand there and look at the sculpted faces and read the histories. That's another timeless classic.
Monument Park has become such an institution that people wanted to make sure they make a pilgrimage out to that spot to witness where history actually lives.
The mystique surrounding the Yankees is a label that they acquired because of dominance over time. They've won more championships than any professional team.
And the Yankees are champions. Look at Barrow.
They have more Hall of Famers than any other team.
Mantle hits a high fly ball. It's deep left center. The match a high hit line.
The Yankees, pure and simple, are the best there ever was, and probably the best there ever will be.
Since the stadium opened, the Yankees have had an unparalleled winning tradition, including a record 4 straight championships in the 30s, followed by another record 5 in a row.
His office pitch to Sal Evarts, a liner to right. Here comes Hank Bauer. He slides, makes the catch. The Yankees win their 3rd straight World Championship.
We had a streak going where, we won from 49 to 53. In fact, that's my favorite World Series ring. It had a 5 on it.
The base hit in the center field. Bauer rounds 3rd. He's going to come in to score. The Yankees win the World Championship. The 5th straight time.
We're the only ones that ever done that, but we just had a bunch of guys that really wanted to win every year, and we never lived on our laurels from what we had done the year before.
In 1955, the Brooklyn Dodgers won their only World Series in 6 tries against the Yankees. But they soon learned that a triumph on Yankee soil comes with a price.
When the Dodgers celebrated on the field like that, I said, well, this is the way it should be. We had won all the time. We expected to win all the time, but we didn't. They beat us, as I can say, fair. We beat them the next year in '56. We got even. So overall.
Indeed, revenge was not only sweet that year, it was perfect.
After the 7th inning, I mentioned it to Mantles, and I told him, look at the scoreboard, there wouldn't be something 2 more innings to go. But when I said that, the dugout was like morgue to me. Nobody would talk to you. You figured there might be say something to jinx you. I don't believe in that. I think if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. If it's not, it's not.
Never in my wildest dreams that I think when I did my first World Series that I'd have the great fortune to call what developed to be the Don Larson perfect game. But I had given it a little thought, if it ever happened that I was calling the perfect game, how I'd go about it. I could use every word in the book and let people know it was a no-hitter without using those specific words. So I did, 21 outs in a row.
21 in a row. Retired.
by Don Larson.
The only people on base so far have been the Yankees.
Yanks with the only runs and hits in the game.
On and on. I kept throwing all these illusions, so there was no question
Larson has retired 24 men in a row.
that no Brooklyn player had been on base.
Larson is ready, gets the sign. 2 strikes, ball 1. Here comes the pitch.
And I finally get a chance to say, the no-hitter, a perfect game for Don Larson.
A no-hitter, a perfect game for Don Larson.
Yogi Berra runs out, leaps on Larson.
Yogi Berra runs out there, he leaps on Larson, and he's swarmed by his teammates.
A no-hitter, a perfect game. Those were the perfect words for the perfect game.
The first World Series no-hitter, a perfect performance by Don Larson.
And I didn't know it was a perfect game until somebody told me in the clubhouse after the game. I think everybody's entitled to a good day. You couldn't pick a better time than my game.
We're in the bottom of the 9th inning. This game is for the American League Championship.
The thing about that moment was we had that 3-run lead, and George Brett hits this home run off of Grant Jackson that ties it up, and it gets to that moment where I come up.
All right, it's Chris Chambliss now, who steps up, and the crowd comes alive here, and I'm sure a lot of folks holding their breath.
And I stood up to the plate, and he threw the first pitch, and it was a high fastball, and I just swung.
Delivers high drive, hits it right center field. That's gone. It is.
We knew it was a Bobby Thompson moment. It won the pennant.
Chris Chambliss has won the American League pennant for the New York Yankees.
You had everything but Russ Hodges yelling, the Yankees win the pennant, the Yankees win the pennant. And of course, the famous run around the bases. It's amazing he survived it at all.
When I hit second base, there's like people all over the place. And what made it scary for me is that I tripped and went down to one knee. And the only thing I could think of is that what if I was on the ground and there's all these thousands of people on top of me and I can't breathe?
Look at the mob, Chris Chambliss.
Third base was just a mountain of people. I went around those folks and I took a beeline straight to our dugout.
What a way for the American League season to end.
Everybody's asking the same question, did you touch home plate? And I said it was impossible to do that. And what we did, and this is a true story, I took 2 cops with me and made our way through that crowd, and home plate was gone, of course, but I did put my foot on that area. And I was told by umpires after that, they said that under those circumstances, that as soon as that ball went over the fence, that it was a home run, and it's in the books.
I don't think I understood the impact that it would have on the game, because it really is what I'm most remembered for.
Big World Series for Reggie Jackson.
Look, Reggie did special things at special times. He was a great player, and he rose to the occasion. We were ready to pounce on the Dodgers, and Reggie finished the job.
Heralded the resurrection of the Yankees in championship form.
The Yankees win their 21st World Series.
I think the most important, part of it all is it makes me feel part of the Yankee family. So, of course, I'm extremely proud to be part of its history and part of the great moments that are remembered.
Oh, what a World Series for Reggie Jackson.
What if you... Almost 2 decades would pass before the Yankees would win again. The year was 1996, and this time they had come back from a 2-0 deficit.
And the Yankees are 1 strike away.
They had just hit one Charlie almost caught and fell in the dugout.
And just out of the reach of Charlie Hayes.
And when he hit it, I was just hoping that it would stay in fair territory. Then when I saw that Charlie was about to catch it, you can't really explain the feeling, because New York hadn't had a World Series in a long time.
The Yankees are champions of baseball.
We had finally won a World Series,
That's always going to be a special moment for me, pounding on top of the guys and celebrating.
And then watching video of Paul O'Neill running in from right field and jumping on the pile and rolling off, and then doing it again, like once wasn't enough to smash me.
You know, I think it's always going to be remembered with Wade Boggs riding around the field on the policeman's horse, celebrating with the fans, winning the first World Series in 18 years.
That team laid the foundation for a new Yankee dynasty. The record-setting '98 team staked its claim to a title early with a dramatic Game 1 comeback.
I remember a left-hand pitcher whose name just escaped. You know, the older you get, you have trouble remembering everybody's name. We struck somebody out, but the umpire called it a ball, and the next pitch went over the left field wall for a grand slam home run.
Martinez down the right field line. Grand slam.
And that was the end of the World Series for us.
7 runs in the 7th inning in the first game of the best-of-7 World Series.
What was there about that team that didn't impress you? It was an extraordinary ball club. It certainly, in my view, has to go down as one of the best teams in the history of the game.
The Yankees have done it again. Number 24.
I mean, I've been a part of no-hitters, perfect games, but the two things that stand out the most are being on the field, winning a championship at Yankee Stadium. We did it in '96, we did it in '99.
And the New York Yankees are world champions.
They were part of a dynasty that won 4 world championships.
The New York Yankees, world champions, team of the decade, most successful franchise of the century.
Prior to Game 3 of the 2001 Fall Classic, emotions ran high at the stadium as baseball continued its efforts to help a nation heal.
Well, I was down below loosening up, and Derek Jeter came in. He said, Mr. President, you going to be throwing from the mound or from in front of the mound? I said, what do you think, Derek? He said, throw from the mound. And then as he's walking out the room, he looks over his shoulder and says, but don't bounce it. They'll boo you.
Please welcome the President of the United States.
You can't possibly plan for a moment like that. And when I walked out there in that field, the crowd started to chant USA. My reaction was to give a thumbs up, is to indicate that America stands with you and we're united in our determination to protect our country.
Everything kind of just stood still. I'm sure there's a picture around, but I have a picture in my mind it's pretty awesome.
I had given a fair amount of big speeches by then in my life, and in others I'd been in front of crowds before, but I had never had such an adrenaline rush. I tried to take a deep breath and wound up and fired the pitch, and I was one of the most relieved men in America at that moment when the ball actually made it to the plate.
Very nice throw, Mr. President. Good stuff, good stuff.
How do you stand out there in that moment and throw a perfect pitch? It was incredible. It was incredible.
No president has ever visited Yankee Stadium during the World Series. This was the year for that to happen.
And Game 4 was the time when both mystique and awe made their appearance at Yankee Stadium.
Oh no, full moon. You know what that means? Crazy things happen in the full moon. And fly ball center field. Hit his way back. At the wall.
When the ball finally left the ballpark and hit the outfield wall out there, to hear the fans take that noise level so loud and so exciting was one of the greatest feelings I'll ever have.
With 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th, he drills a game-time 2-run home run.
I think Jeter had faced their closer Kim in the inning before, and when he came in, and I quote, Jeter said, "Game's over."
3-2 pitch, swung on the drill to right field, going back Sanders on the track at the wall. See ya! See ya! See ya! A home run by Derek Jeter.
You know, I've never hit a walk-off home run before. You know, not even in Little League or in high school. It's the ultimate. You dream of when you're a kid is to hit a home run in a key situation in the World Series, and to get an opportunity to do that is pretty overwhelming.
What I want to know about Derek's home run, which came after midnight on November 1st, is that how did that guy have the smarts to have that sign ready. That's the thing that always baffled me about that. Where did that sign come from that said Mr. November?
He is Mr. November!
What a thrill. It put us back in shape for 2 games apiece with a lot of confidence going into a big Game 5 for us.
And as a sage Yankee would say, the next night was deja vu all over again.
What we were feeling was, you know, we're down to the last out, the night before, down to the last out, and the place was loud but also kind of leery of the situation, and then it was just kind of pandemonium again once the ball went over the fence. I mean, Yankee Stadium's been loud a lot, but I just don't remember it ever being as loud. The place just absolutely going nuts.
Deja vu, a 2-out, game-tying 2-run home run by Scott Brosius.
Going around the bases, I'm kind of seeing this place and thinking to myself, no way did this just happen again. I mean, that's really kind of what kept going through my head was no way did it just happen again.
We go to extra innings, tied at 2. Into right field, base hit. Sanders away with him home. Here comes that one. The throw by Sanders. Play at the plate, Yankees win.
Those are the stories that people are going to remember. You know, were you at Game 4? Were you at Game 5 of the 2001 World Series? It brings goosebumps back thinking about it because it was absolutely the most fun 2 games I think I've ever played in my life.
Oh my! Another miracle in the Bronx.
The Red Sox 5 defensive outs away from heading to the World Series.
First of all, to get to extra innings in that particular ball game with Pedro on the mound, we managed to come back on him, and now here we are in the extra innings.
The American League pennant at stake.
And here's Aaron Boone coming up to the plate.
The Yankees aren't finished yet.
I knew I was leading off the inning, actually feeling like I was going to do something good.
He's facing Wakefield, and you know he loves to hit the fastball. He jumps at everything.
Joe had said, hey, just think back through the middle.
I just happened to say to him, I said, just get a single.
Doesn't mean you won't hit a home run.
It doesn't mean you won't hit a home run.
But just stay through the middle.
With the knuckleball, try to hit a single.
As I was walking up to the plate, I said, you know what, just get a good pitch to hit, and I did.
Aaron Boone to lead off. His first at-bat of the game. There's a fly ball deep to left. It's on its way. There it goes. And the Yankees are going to the World Series. Aaron Boone has hit a home run.
First pitch, he gets a knuckleball, and all of a sudden, the prettiest sight you ever want to see, you see the ball go up into the air. It was the greatest feeling I could ever have, especially in that tense a battle in Game 7 of the Championship Series 2003. All of a sudden, you know, we're heading to another World Series.
The Yankees go to the World Series for the 39th time in their remarkable history.
Aaron Boone hit the first pitch of the inning, just like Chris Chambliss in 1976. It was perfect. It was just unbelievable.
You're just thankful and blessed that you get to be in situations like that, you know, and sometimes you fail, sometimes you succeed, and to have a small place in the history of that stadium is something that I'll get to, I guess, tell my grandkids about someday.
Yankee Stadium. For more than 8 decades, it has been the cornerstone of the most successful franchise in all of sports, a playground for generations of legends. Opening day of 2008 was the 84th and final opening at this storied site, and fittingly, the great Yankee traditions of both the present and the past were on display.
Make sure you reach it.
It was incredibly special. You know, a lot of emotions go through your mind. It was a beautiful evening. To watch Reggie and Yogi out there was very, very special.
You know the way out here? Yeah, real good. Real good. Get close, whatever you do.
All right, go ahead. Let's see you do it. Oh, pretty good. All right.
There's a lot of people who spent so much time in that park as a fan. It's the last opening day in a place that we all know so well. Come next year, come 2009, we'll open up a new ballpark, and it'll be a real special opening day.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the future home of the new Yankee Stadium.
The Yankees broke ground for their new home on August 16, 2006, the 58th anniversary of the passing of Babe Ruth. And the question has to be asked, can the new ballpark embody the spirit of all things tangible and mystical that the house that Ruth built did? The Yankees are resolved that the new stadium will be a worthy heir, reminiscent of its predecessor.
Well, I'm so excited about the new stadium because it's old school. We're turning back the clock and going to the original Yankee Stadium footprint, but with all the new amenities that New York City would expect and deserve.
Our goal is to recreate for the fans the original 1923 stadium with the best of the renovated 1973 stadium. When you approach the new Yankee Stadium, it's going to be just as the fans approached it in 1923, just what Babe Ruth saw. The great cathedral windows and the facade on the front. The traditional symbol of Yankee Stadium, the frieze surrounding on top of the roof.
We're going to move the tarp from right field to left field. The black won't be there. We're putting in a sports bar, but we're putting Monument Park back in center field. And then to be fan-friendly, home plate and the backstop will be 20 feet closer. But other than that ballpark is coming back. We still want the bleacher creatures singing out the praises of our players. We still want YMCA being played as we sweep the field.
They're going to have the old scoreboard down there. I saw the model. I said, it looks great. That's really going to be something. I can't wait to when it's all finished.
Everybody kind of looks with anticipation, but also a touch of apprehension. You want and hope that the new stadium will be able to carry forward some of this mystique or a tradition that the old stadium has.
We're just happy that we're able to do this for the Yankees and happy to do it for you people. And enjoy the new stadium. I hope it's wonderful.
We know, and so the countdown begins, giving everyone, fans and players alike, one last chance to revel in the wondrous history of these friendly confines.
In 1981, I'm pitching the third game of the playoffs against the Brewers. That was the summer my son Travis fell and was in a coma for 17 days. George Steinbrenner offered him a chance to throw out the first ball. It was 56, 57,000 people chanting his name, Travis, Travis, Travis. That will get to me as long as I live.
Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth.
Yankee Stadium is unmatched in the glory it has witnessed. And those who were blessed to experience this cathedral of the game are that much richer for it.
All those memories for me will never go away, even if they do, I hate to say, tear the stadium down.
Yankee Stadium is the host for any and every sport and any and every dignitary. I don't know of any other stadium around the country that even compares.
I don't think there's any more storied stadium than Yankee Stadium.
You get attached to the building.
The building that you played in, spent so much time in, is actually gone. It'd be like having a house you grew up in or something for me that, they came and just wiped it out.
And the Yankees are We got the greatest fans in the world, the Yankee Stadium. There's a lot of memories in there.
Those of us who've been there, who've had a chance to be part of it, it'll never leave our memory.
Best place to play in the world.
It stands the test of time.
A part of me is going to die. A part of me is going to go down with the stadium as well.
Thanks for watching Yankee Stadium, baseball's cathedral.